Hello and welcome to SCLO Consulting Live. My name is Martin Crowson and I'm joined today by SCLO MD Steve O'Hare. Morning, Steve.
Morning, Martin. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. The sun's shining. The weather's infinitely better than last time we did this when we had torrential rain outside the window, which was a little bit distracting. But we do have bright sunshine today. So, yeah, it's all good. All good.
Excellent. Thanks for joining us, folks. Today we were on a couple of weeks ago to discuss the application process for the RoATP delivery, which was due soon. And last week we finally had some news from the ESFA on that process. So Steve's here to answer some questions and to let us know exactly what's been involved in that. If you have any questions during the session, please stick them in the comment section below and we'll endeavour to get round to answering them while we're on. So let's get straight into it, Steve. After the information that's come out at the end of last week, basically, what do we know? What do we know now that we didn't do a few weeks ago?
Okay. I think the first thing to say to people is the process fundamentally remains the same in terms of what's being asked, how it's being asked, and all of those sorts of things. It is a refresh of what you've done before. One thing that sort of changes within that whole piece is actually the ESFA talked extensively, if we looked at the press releases before anything came out, that they would look to make things even more robust and look to improve things further. And to be honest, looking at the initial guidance document, and I think the key thing to say here, it is an initial guidance document that was released last week. And it's likely to go through multiple iterations over the coming months as the SFA work through things, that it will be it will evolve and it will evolve continually. So what I've done is I've got some sort of like high level sort of statistics and high level things as to what's new and what's different. So in terms of the system, that's one thing that isn't 100% clear at the moment. So it appears from reading the guidance document that the providers will be invited through Bravo Solutions as they were previously, so no real change there. However, it does read, and from speaking to colleagues within AELP and within various other bits, that the SFA are actually looking to have almost like their own portal to run the RoATP system. So actually they're going to have their own system. So not too dissimilar from the Crown Commercial Services system that some providers will use if they're delivering stuff to apprenticeships, for instance, to governmental departments. So it'd be that gov.uk type system. So hopefully it's as good as the one that you can use to book your COVID vaccination. So I used that on Monday and that was fantastic, I thought. So if it works like that, then it's going to be, it'll be a really, really solid system. So
are there any question marks over that, Steve? Because it is a government system. Does it worry you as well as the vaccination system was good? It's not foolproof.
Yeah, but then the things weren't. Yeah. It's like any new system. You're always going to get teething issues and teething problems. So hopefully, it's a good one, and they've taken the time to do it right. And actually, if they do that, then it will be decent. As I said, the Crown Commercial bit, there's bits that work well on it and bits that don't work well on it. And then, if we go down that route, then it'll be okay. So other things that we do know, so that's a little bit of a grey area. But whatever it will be, the process is the process is the process. It's just where you do your process is another thing. So before, and in quite a lot of our communications out to the market, we've talked about sort of like the high level stuff of what people have to do. And as I said, there are some changes. So in terms of the number of policies that you need to submit, actually you now need to submit less. So we're now just 10 policies. So before it's 13, 14, actually we're now down to 10. So reviewing the guidance document, there's three three parts that I'd say are new or require a fairly substantial update. There's 5 that need a review and a light update. So actually just making sure that you're up to date with changes in the world and changes with them, with things that you're doing. And 2 which are virtually identical to what was asked for previously. So, there is 3 things that we need to do quite a lot on, 5 things that we need to bit on, and 2 that we just need to make sure we're using our most up-to-date ones internally. So not a huge change. In terms of the question part, and one thing I will say about this is that, as with the previous iteration of the process, the whole thing depends on you as an organization. So it depends on what route you're going down, where you are in terms of being inspected by Ofsted, and possibly some other bits and bobs. So depending on how you answer certain questions, you won't have to answer other questions. So if you've got a recent Ofsted grade 2 for apprenticeships, then I suspect there'll be quite a lot of the written stuff knocked out, as was last time. So ultimately you're assessed good quality by an independent body will mean that it cuts down the amount you have to provide because it's been assessed elsewhere. But until the system goes live, it's a little bit hard to tell which will knock what out, because the guidance isn't as yet clear on how that will work. But I'm sure over the coming weeks that will come to light a little bit more. So this is where the change is. So if you are a main provider, it looks like the absolute maximum you'll have to answer is 20 written questions. Now, previously on system, you had 2,000 characters to respond to each question. I don't know what the response will be this time, whether it be 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. But I would hazard a guess that it will be around that 2,000, 3,000 character mark. The key thing with the questions, and this is if it's sort of almost like your worst case scenario, you're almost double what you had to answer previously, because actually they've asked a lot more questions. And what I'd also say is that some of the processes that you had to provide and the policies you had to provide are now written questions. So actually, and I think this is something where credit to the ESFA, things like what's your employer engagement policy isn't really a policy. It's kind of like, how do you do something? So actually, the fact that that is one that has changed to a question. So that feels far more sensible in terms of how that's done. So if we just give those headline figures around the question, so 4 are new questions that were previously policies. So there's things that providers will already have. So actually, you've got your written policy. What we now need to do when it comes to the reapplication is that we turn that policy into a written answer, which is it's something we need to do, and actually is probably a more sensible approach going forward. There are 7 new / fundamentally different questions. So there are a lot of things that are being asked that is different, and a lot of this is around the quality of how you maintain quality and how, as an organization, you work with employers, stakeholders, sectoral bodies to improve the quality of your provision. So in terms of that robustness, actually it's fairly welcoming. It is ultimately more work, but as a taxpayer, you would kind of hope that that robustness is there. And actually,
it's something you would expect from a government body when anything's evolving like this. You would expect them to be more robust and learn from previous lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the questions replace some of the older stuff, and it just asks stuff in a better way. And then we've got 9 questions which are really closely based on past questions and will ultimately just need updating. So they're not hugely different. They are things that have been asked before, and we need to just evolve and check. With some of those sort of like those red questions, those different questions, again, they're fundamentally different, but some of it is still asking the same thing. It's just a case of flipping what we've already done before, or what we've already produced before, to do what I always say and answer the question. If we just cut and paste what we had before, we will end up in trouble. So we just need to make sure that we, answer what's been specifically asked of us.
So that's the information.
Yeah. Other key things, and I don't want to worry people, but again, the process is the same. It will be the same 3-month window for once you submit to get an answer, and then the slightly, the disconcerting bit is that actually it's a one strike and you're gone scenario. So where previously, if you failed, you could reapply. Now this time, if you fail, you don't have that ability to reapply, so you need to make sure it's right first time. So this really does need to be treated with the that level of respect of what potentially it could do to your business if you don't get it right.
Sure. Okay. And so there's information from what's coming. When can people expect the invites to come out? When do we launch it?
Yeah. The process launches on the 17th of May. So what's that? 2 and a bit weeks away, or 2 weeks on Monday, I believe. But that's when it's launching, and it's launching to a small group of initial providers. So I believe, from what I've been told, that it's only 30 of the current market. So the current market's just over 2,000 providers. So it's 30, and that'll be, it's a sensible approach by the ESFA, because ultimately they're talking about a new system here, and they probably want to make sure that works effectively. So those, I would be surprised if those providers don't know who they are already. However, it's, they may not do. So those providers will have, I believe, till the end of June, if they're notified on the 17th of May, to get something in, to do their applications. That's a 6-week window, which is still, it's a big job, but 6 weeks is plenty of time to do the job effectively and do the job well.
Is that 6 weeks, Steve, going to be standard practice for everybody, you expect?
Genuinely, I don't know. Ultimately, until we get into some of these more detailed bits, I'm not 100% sure. But I would envisage the 6 to 8 week window would be standard. That's what it was previously. So if we look back, before, people tended to get their invite the first or second week of the month to reapply the following month, and had to the last working day or the last day of that month at midnight to upload their application. And again, in the guidance, it's still the same process. It still cuts off on the at midnight of the last day, and then it takes that 3-month window to mark. So when people are going to get their invite, it's the ESFA are doing it on a risk basis. And ultimately, only the ESFA will know what that means. But I would hazard a guess that if you're an organisation that hasn't been doing much delivery, then you're likely to be invited early doors. If your organisation's had issues with Ofsted in the past, I would imagine you would get invited early doors. But for the majority of the market, it's going to take a period of time. There's 2,100 and something organisations on the register. You can't invite everybody in one go. And I've said previously, it would be logical if people that did this early, so those that applied January 19, January 19. Yeah, so those that applied January 19 are invited in the first batch, and those that applied in August, September 19, or past that point, further down the line. It's kind of that would be the sensible approach. But I don't until we start to see it. We don't know.
Jenny, have an idea what the latest time might be for those that are right at the back of that application process? How long could it go on?
Yeah, the whole process is due to be done by the end of 2021. So you could be, we could be December by the time you get an invite. So last time it was a 6-7 month lot of windows. So 6-7 months that people were invited in. So I can't see that being any different now. So again, starting May, June, takes you through to December. It's the same sort of principle once again.
Okay. You've been involved as a consultant in countless successful application processes on the RoATP in the past, Steve. Briefly, what advice could you give companies now to help them prepare for when that invite drops on the doorstep?
Yeah, the guidance is there. So, you know, the initial guidance is there. Go and review the guidance. Go and review the guidance against your existing application, and look to see what can be improved and what needs to be changed. One thing I would really advise people to do is look at the business continuity plan. I mean, I don't, you know, it may be a bit of an obvious statement that the last 18 months has tested organisations' ability to deliver and use their continuity processes more so than ever in the history of education, I think, bar any wars, you know. So people have had to test the continuity plan. So the continuity plan needs to be up to date and actually reflect what's been going on in the last 18 months. So that's one thing I'd definitely look at. Similarly, I'd start to look at some of the questions. There's bits around how you work with endpoint assessment organisations. So maybe consider what's important to you in working with an endpoint assessment organisation. Look at your quality systems and processes. Look at how you are delivering things like English and maths, because that's no longer a policy. That's a question. So review the document and start to gather what you need to gather. There are a few other bits and bobs in there, that around making what's your quality statement. Pull that out, and what's your mission statement in terms of delivering quality apprenticeship. So there's these are the key things that we need to get across in terms of delivery and the quality in which the ESFA want to see.
Okay, that's brilliant. Thanks a lot, Steve. It's much appreciated. We've done a previous one on the RoATP a few weeks ago, which is also on the YouTube channel. The best way to find out about the broadcast we're going to be doing over the next few months will be to subscribe to the YouTube channel and click the notification bell, which will enable you to be the first to find out about any new broadcasts we'll be doing and sharing information with you about the process and what more we know. If you'd like to get in touch with Steve for any advice or help with your company, please contact him at the email which is on the screen now. Apart from that, ask any questions you like in the comments box afterwards, and we'll endeavour to get around to answer them. But for the time being, Steve, thanks a lot for your time this morning. Much appreciated. We'll catch you soon.
Yeah, enjoyed it. So yeah, not being distracted by the rain this time, so that's quite good.
Well, good. We'll make sure we only do it on sunny days in the future.
Yeah, if you can. Next to please, Martin. That'd be lovely.
Folks, thanks a lot for joining us today. It's much appreciated. We will catch up with you all soon. But for now, I'm Martin Crowson saying goodbye, and it's goodbye from Steve as well. Cheers, Steve.
Cheers, Martin. Thank you. And thank you, everybody. Bye.